Hello, teammates. How's everybody doing? Yeah, please have a seat, please. Everybody doing okay? Awesome. Well, welcome. Hey, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you showing up. I think the crowd would be a little bit fuller only, but the TCB is still running. So I just left there, and they're heavy into some great talks on resourcing, and so anyhow, welcome to Tech Talks. This is our second version of Tech Talks. You know, last time we did Tech Talks, we had a great kind of an introduction to some of the key initiatives that are going on. We call them the Big Five, right? And so we thought that based on some of the inputs and the feedback that we've received from the employees throughout the enterprise, whether it's on the sticky notes downstairs on the walls that you see throughout the building that are trying to inform the community about what's going on with these particular initiatives, or it's through Ask Us Anything or those types of things. And we've taken a lot of those questions, and each of the teams will be kind of going through some of those questions, those frequently asked questions, just about, hey, what's going on with this particular subject? And so we'll talk about those today. The whole idea behind not only the TRANSCOM show, but the Tech Talks is to inform the enterprise, inform the employees, and give all the teammates an opportunity to ask leadership and those teammates that are leading particular initiatives, what's going on, and inform us, and then give you the opportunity to let us elevate questions to the most senior level to get you the answers that you deserve, because we're all in this together. We're all in this together, so we need to just be rowing in the right direction. Before we get started, so we've got the 5 teams here that are gonna do about 5 minutes apiece, and then they're gonna answer some of those questions. But before we get started, you were handed a survey that I would like you to fill out. This really helped us last time in understanding what we need to focus our education on, and then how well we're doing at helping you get the information that you need. And so please take an opportunity, if you haven't already, to fill out that survey. I think that'll be very, very helpful as we go into the Tech Talk. So we'd also like to welcome our folks out on DCS, and so also our public affairs heroes for taping this so that and broadcasting it, so we get across the gamut folks that are able to ask questions and provide inputs from each of the teams. Okay? Anybody need more time to fill out the survey? No? Okay. All right, I'm going to have to duck out, but I want to get started. And so we're going to start with the Global Operations Center. So we're really glad to have you here. We appreciate you taking the time out. And I know let's stick to the timeline so that we can give ample time for questions that you may have regarding each of the areas. So, Colonel Robbins, over to you. Thanks.
Hello. Okay, good.
All right, I'm Colonel Benjamin Robbins, the Chief of Current Operations, also dual-hatted as the Chair of the Global Operations Center Working Group. We meet every other week. Anyway, if you guys were here last time, you saw the longer briefing that talked about exactly what the GOC was doing. 5 lines of efforts, re-looking at the structure for the manpower. Line of effort 2, looking at the decision space. Line of effort 3, looking at how we do knowledge management, battle rhythm, and the common operational picture. Line of effort 4 is our infrastructure changes. And then 5, then how we blend in with the rest of the TRANSCOM mission critical initiatives. So with that, I'll just, and there's a picture here, and you can ask me questions later if you want, but we're heading into hurricane season. That was hurricane season last year, and so it's just a brief reminder of where we're kind of going as we get better at it every year. So next slide. So question 1, I remember the GOC being called the Fusion Center. What was the reason behind the name change? So to understand the name change, you have to understand where we were and where we are today. But previously, it was more of a business mindset focus. And where we're going is a wartime combatant command focus. And a fusion center is really, by definition, information sharing and collaboration. A joint operations center, which is the construct we're going to, is more leading of planning, guiding, and execution to meet a commander's decision cycle. But on top of that, that's the joint operations center. We have named ours the Global Operations Center to encompass how we embody at TRANSCOM. And that is a global functional combatant command, in line with STRATCOM. They are a global operations center as a functional combatant command. and SOCOM as a global mission support center. And the underlying question in all of this is its why. It's really, we didn't do anything bad previously, but the world has changed. And this is to get at the SecDef and the chairman's expectations of where we need to be in the trans-regional, multi-domain, multifunctional world. It's where we need to be to get at the decision cycle, to meet at the speed, to move at the speed of war in this TMM environment, and to meet the dynamic force employment model that the Joint Staff and OSD and the chairman are pushing out to change our construct. So that is the why we are changing the name. All right. Question 2, what support is needed from the directors to make it sure that the GOC is successful? We are not going to be effective at what we do without a whole of staff response. And that is why we are building a CAT, a crisis action team, to have the directorate plug onto the GOC floor to meet those immediate needs. Because we don't know in crisis what legal questions, what policy questions, information questions, intel requirements, reserve affairs requirements that we're going to need. So we're going to need the right SME at the right point on the floor to complement our AOs doing the joint planning. There's other areas we're looking at. Exercise support. This week we're having, the GOC working group is having its first TTX, tabletop exercise, and that's to get at the battle rhythm, to look at how do you stand up a CAT. And then once you stand up a CAT, what do? Do you accelerate the battle rhythm? How do you make those decisions? What working groups are going to be involved in that? All right, next question. What role will the components play in the new GOC? This gets at the question of capacity versus readiness. Before, TRANSCOM was in the business of you call, we haul, without regard, and we could always meet the mission. We do not exist in that environment today. Capacity is limited. Airlift capacity, strategic airlift capacity, tanker airlift capacity. Now we need to ask the question of what is the mode that we need to take? What is the timing on that what we need to take? Because we need to preserve the readiness for our components for the high-end fight, so it can be there when we need them most. So if that means slipping delivery dates and working with the combatant command, working with the services, working with the customer to meet the needs so that we're there when the nation calls. Of course, they're always going to have the LNOs on the floor, and we're always going to have those direct conversations, but this is really a capacity versus readiness question. All right, next question. Are there opportunities for TRANSCOM personnel to tour the new GOC space? Of course, anytime you want, but spoiler alert, nothing has changed on the floor yet. You're welcome to come by, though. The plan change, there's 3 changes really we're planning. The first one is a command briefing area so the commander can get his briefings and provide guidance on the floor, have a VTC capability on the floor, and also to bring DVs by. We get a lot of visits, and to show the DVs the world-class support and operations that you all do every day. The second piece is having a dedicated CAT space for the crisis action team, the directorates to flow in down there, and then a dedicated joint planning group space, a collaboration area where they can plan and collaborate and not disperse to the areas and have to come back because they don't have the facilities. Those are the 3 major infrastructure changes that when you come see it, when we do the ribbon cutting, that you'll be able to see. All right, final question. How will cloud, big data, TMS, DP3 help the GOC operate more effectively and efficiently? Y'all are the magic unicorns that are going to fix everything for us. Where we are trying to go is to not respond to requirements, but to get at requirements 2 years out. And with the big data, with TMS, to have visibility on our requirements, to show to the combatant commands, to show to our customers, to show to the services an entire purview. Does it go by air? Does it go by sea, like I said? Commercial? To have that huge enterprise look and be able to plan further out, less manually, will help us in the future so we can get at the decisions quicker. And the example we like to point to is the Global Mobility Agile Command and Control. Our ability to take tankers and move them around the world. Well, which tankers? Where are they? Who's the best tankers? Those kind of questions that can help with. So that's my 5 questions, I believe. I'll turn it over to the next one. All right, actually, questions from the audience. Okay. No one?
Colonel,
Yeah.
At what classification classification level will the GOP operate at? Because as NSA, we might have some tools that would be of use for you, but there's some classification challenges.
Right, so it's still going to stay at the secret level. We still have, now there's new requirements, understanding, there's new personnel coming out with other areas that might be a higher classification, and our job is to work so that we can seamlessly blend into that, make it more robust, that relationship in a more secure area. But the GOC, to answer your question, will stay at the secret level. We looked at putting other terminals on the floor, but that required making the entire space that kind of skiffed out area. It just wasn't possible.
I know we haven't talked TMS yet, but you're reorganizing now. Are you also looking to reorganize for TMS when it finally does come out online?
Yeah, so right now, the J3D, Colonel Dawson, has departed the fix and is permanently assigned to TMS. And so the TMS will reside in the J3. It's standing up as a branch or division, but it's its own line along the J3. And there is space on the floor. We dedicated, we kicked the surgeons, and there's some I see here. We kicked the surgeons to the other side of the floor, and there are now dedicated 12 spaces of TMS that are going to be on the floor so they can integrate with J3I, the systems integration folks. So there is space, and we're bringing that online as that pans out into the fall, and they are still doing their business line of effort. Anyone else? All right. That's it for me then. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, now I'm live. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Colonel Ralph Lounsborough. I'm the chief of the Personal Property Program in the J4. I had a presentation we did back, I don't know, probably a month and a half ago, where I actually showed everybody one of the things with that is I showed everybody what the new system's going to look like on the iPhone. So I have a few questions, but I'll start off with letting everybody know that we actually launched that new system Friday the 1st. So things are moving finally. We have a lot of things that we're going to be continuing to work on with that over the summer. And I'll go to the next question and just kind of get at it. Next slide, please. All right. So the pilot actually launched last Friday. We started with personally procured moves, which for some of you that have moved, if you're not familiar with that term, it's really the old Diddy moves. It's what we call Diddy moves now. It's personally procured moves. A little bit smaller launch than we'd originally anticipated. We are still working through some issues with industry, with all the interfaces. We have 825 transportation service providers that we work with on a daily basis. We entered the peak season on 15 May. So between 15 May and 31 August, we move about 40% of the workforce in DOD that moves in the course of a year. So we are really entering here in the next week or so the peak of the peak season for the program. So with a few minor things that still needed to be worked out with the system, we didn't want to bring industry in on top of the other issues with the peak of the peak season. So we actually launched, like I said, on Friday with 13 people. Small launch. We're going to continue to expand that over the next couple months with personally procured moves. We have some planning sessions that are going to be going on next week with the contractors and with Defense Digital Services. So we're going to work through kind of what the next couple months looks like, expanding that PPM, and then getting ready for the 1 October launch with a bigger audience with the household good industry as well, with full service moves. Next slide. Question 2 is what kind of data and feedback are you collecting during the pilot? So I will tell you that most of our feedback is not automation. It is sitting down directly with people using the system and getting their feedback on what they thought worked, what they thought could be better, and what we can do to make the system work better for them in the future. So we have been doing this for actually about 4 or 5 months now. As we develop different pieces of this new system, we've had people from DDS and people from the team that have gone out to the PIPO level, down to the installation level, actually sat down with service members and run through that piece with them to get their feedback. we're also a little bit different with this system in the sense that we're starting off agile. So we do smaller releases with smaller test groups that sit down and the functional side as well, and work directly with the people who are building it in the system. So that part's working pretty well. Of course, as the program continues to expand and we bump the number of people that are working in the system up, there will be some automation built in so we can track some of that data, which I'll talk about in a minute. Next slide, please. Next question is, how will DP3 be integrated with TMS, the cloud, and big data? So the TMS piece is scheduled. We're looking at that, but we're probably a couple years out, I think, from this program being inside of TMS. And I'm keeping an open mind. I think TMS is a great initiative, what everybody's doing. I'm not sure exactly how we're gonna totally fit into that yet, but that is being worked. As far as the cloud, this new system is actually already in the cloud. So that part's working well. And then with the big data, we move 430,000 people a year. So there is a lot of data that is in the system on a daily basis, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do on the big data front, because I think there's a lot of things that can tell us that we are maybe missing with the current system, getting after the big data stuff. So we do a lot of data mining, but it would be nice to have some of that stuff done for us automatically. So looking forward to that piece. Next question, please. How will the new system allow a more dynamic scheduling of moves and/or pickup days? Users move and/or pickup days. So the system is not actually going to, it's probably not going to help so much with the users' moves and pickup days. That's really part of the program. What the system does is it enhances that. So what we've done with the system is we focused it on the users. There's a lot of back office stuff that needs to happen. There's a lot of interface with industry that needs to happen. All that stuff's going to be improved as well. But the number one reason that we started this new system was to make it better for users coming in and planning their move. As users come in, I think that they are finding that one is it's more intuitive. I mean, you can come in. I think most people could probably figure out how to do their move without any help at all now. We're not trying to get rid of the counselors that are out there at the installation level, but if we can make that easier, we can free those guys up to do other things on the move, like maybe perhaps QA, and go out and actually make sure you're getting a quality move at your house that day. So what it really does is it's potentially going to free up some other resources to do other things as we move forward with the users. Next question. And then how could I learn more about DP3? So there's this great website that we put together. It's been out there for years, but we redesigned it back in November and launched it in December, called move.mil. A lot of information in there. With the actual new system, so because we have rolled it out slow and we're actually working directly with people, I can't give a link for people to go in and look at the new system yet, but that will be coming soon, I think, where you can actually go in like you could with DPS and set up an account and actually run through the system and see what it looks like. And I'm sure there's another tech talk coming someday, so maybe the next one I do, I'll actually show what the new system's looking like again. Next slide. I think this is just questions from the audience. So do I have any questions? All right, I guess like I either did a great job or a terrible job. Thanks. And who's next?
Thanks, sir. Okay, is everybody awake? Yes. All right, let's go. Same drill as everybody else, 5 questions, and I want to open up the floor because your questions, interaction here is pretty important. So next slide. Question 1 is 2 questions. So security in the cloud. We have a lot of information out on our website that will talk about this. We really break down cybersecurity in a textbook fashion to confidentiality, integrity, availability. We establish the environment around our data center security stack and our data center management stack, which is all of those features necessary to protect the environment and to support operations in the environment. So the other side of our project is moving those applications in behind that boundary to take advantage of those services. So From a benefit perspective, we see a lot from an availability perspective. SDDC and the systems that have gone system of record already see, I wouldn't call it an infinite, but a great reduction in time it takes to recover their systems in case of a failure. Right? We've gone from a matter of days to minutes. We have recovery point objectives for those applications also that are in the cloud. We can recover to the second over the last 2 weeks. So if there's something that happened in the system you want to roll back, we have that ability. We can go back to Tuesday at 8:39 a.m. if we need to. So there's some great strides, some great benefits, and we're also learning that we can improve our applications to take more advantage of those things as we move on in the process. So next slide. So how many apps have been into the cloud already? System of record, we're at 5 or 6, depending on what happened today. Those applications are fully operational, users hitting them in the cloud. We have another behind them on the order of about 22 to 25 that are loaded in the cloud and moving towards that operational status. Behind that, phase 3, which was started recently, is the rest of the enterprise. So that's our PEO systems, that's our AMC systems, and anything left in the enterprise that we want to take advantage of those commoditized services. So great strides, we've got some great processes, and we're making great progress. This is, that's the grind we go through. It's, I guess, the way I would put it every day. Colonel Baldus will tell you it's not easy. We think it's worth it. So let's go to the next slide. Go fast through these things. How many apps have we built in the cloud environment? Right now we have 3 projects that are software development. Not anything nearly what the DP3 folks are doing, right? That's a massive scale. Actually, envy you guys. That's a good time. We have, seriously, there's a lot of empowerment there for understanding your business processes, working with your customers, and delivering value to them on a very rapid scale. So there are 3 projects right now in the cloud that we're doing that with. One is called Close Watch for J54, which is a data analytics tool over some focused data that they currently use in that environment. The second is DCBS, which is a billing system for AMC. We modernize some of the components of that, specifically when it comes to file management. We use some Amazon native services for serverless applications. So it's pretty cool stuff. And then the last one is CPA, is our customs automation process, which we've automated some workflows in that as well. So next slide. Okay, I'm not a technical person. In technical terms, can I talk to you about what the cloud will give us? My answer to you is it's really back to our mission assurance. Confidentiality, we want to make sure that the bad guys aren't getting into our stuff. Integrity, we want to make sure that the applications behave appropriately and that no one is fiddling with our data so that we know our data is what we need it to be when it's available. And the third is availability, making sure that we have resilience, making sure that we have failover plans, or making sure that we have high availability in some cases. So end-to-end, the tools and the technologies that are available and that we've modernized in the cloud platform provide those benefits. When we couple it with projects like TMS or couple it with DP3, we can bring in some new modernized tool sets and processes when we start talking about software development, rapid deployment, where we're taking advantage of some of that, but end-to-end, modernization of the platform is critical, and that's what some of these other projects are bringing to the table. For a non-technical person, that means you get your capabilities faster, they're more reliable, they're more performant, and we have better control over who sees it, and the integrity and the quality of the data that's available in that system. So, great stuff. Let's go to question number 5. Okay, how can I learn more about the Sprint to the Cloud initiative? So the main point of information that we put out to the command is on the USTRANSCOM homepage. It's on the right-hand side of the page, about 3/4 of the way down. It's called Sprint to the Cloud. There are some frequently asked questions out there, so a lot of what we talked about here is on that page. What I would also offer is you can submit questions. Those come directly to us. We answer them go to their receive. They get posted out to the website. The PA team and the chief of staff team did a great job with posting the cloud board out. We got a lot of questions from that, which also went out to the board. Otherwise, you can contact J6. I believe that the Sprint to the Cloud site has a way for you to contact us as well. We try to be as transparent as possible. We tend to be very busy, so not as responsive as we'd like to be, but we do appreciate sharing our story with others, helping understand so that we're working through this together. So, questions?
I have a question. How does blockchain fit into Sprint to the Cloud?
Okay, so blockchain is a technology for non-repudiation and ownership of data objects throughout a workflow. So if you read on it, right, where that's heavily used is in electronic currency, right, Bitcoins and things like that. We don't currently have plans to implement that on any of our data workflows. I would expect that when we further modernize our systems, right, bring them from where they're at to the level of modernization that we're bringing them into the cloud, as we move to the next generation beyond that, and when I say that, I mean our redeveloped applications, I would expect that given the requirements for protection of that data and non-repudiation, we would be looking at blockchain as potential for those.
Yeah, Wes.
Lou.
So, I understand that some of the things we can't transition to the cloud is due to contractual limitations. So if that is the case, are we looking at, is AQ looking at reworking contracts to try to eliminate those loopholes?
So I'm not aware of any application that cannot move due to contractual limitations. And AQ has done a great job with us at looking at those contracts, determining what modifications we need, even down to software licenses. If there are some issues with software licenses that have caused us, has made it a less expensive endeavor to stay where we're at than move to the cloud. And we're looking at modernization around that so that we can fix that bill.
I got it, thanks.
Right.
Wes, for the
Bob.
programs of record that are run into the cloud, have any software updates been done inside the cloud environment? And if so, how did that go, or any lessons learned yet?
So that's kind of a multifaceted question. When we did migration to the cloud, we were able to take advantage of some cloud native services from a database perspective, from a routing management perspective, that provided some of the benefits I talked about earlier, quick failover, high availability. So from that perspective, yes. When we're talking about things like patching systems, depending on the implementation and the architecture of the system, we can automate that to make it to where the programs may not even need to worry about managing and patching their systems. So I'm not sure exactly what you're going for, Bob.
Have anybody, any of those programs updated their software, or done any kind of updates, and how did it go?
So you mean like version?
Yeah.
Version-wise? Yes, we have. So a handful of the applications were able to move from, let's say, Windows 2008 to Windows 2012, because we were able to manage that seamlessly. Operating system level, we've done that in several cases. We were able to upgrade to, cloud native services, which gave us that higher availability. We're taking a break no glass approach to moving these applications into the cloud. So if there's something we think we can upgrade, we'll upgrade it as a test case in the cloud, see how it goes, right? If it falls apart, we may go back to where we're at. But those opportunities are always open for the applications as they migrate.
Thanks.
Quick question. So when we have these general forums to talk about the cloud migration or any other initiatives that we have on the government side to support our mission, are there any more technical, smaller talks in which programs or directors can be involved as architecture concerns, things of that nature, specifically with the Sprint to the Cloud are concerned?
Sure. So generally, if we do that, we'll do it by request. We can set up time because it's more of a smaller group setting, and we'll make sure we get the right folks in the room that can have that discussion with you.
Whose request?
What's that?
Whose request?
Well, if you have a request, we can talk right after this meeting. Get you the right email addresses, and we can set something up.
Sorry, a follow-up question.
Sure.
Are we moving both Nipper and Sipper to the cloud?
The plans are for Nipper and Sipper right now, yes. Okay. I think I've used my time. I don't want to. I think it's Kelly's turn or Paul's turn.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, so Paul Shagla from Transcom J6 and discussing the big data initiative. Next slide, please. So similar, what does the term big data actually mean, and what does it mean within the USTRANSCOM specifically? So the term big data applies to data in such volumes that it's human capability to process that amount of data is just not possible. So you're looking for technology to solve that volume data in that process. What does that mean for USTRANSCOM? So let's take a look at USTRANSCOM's system portfolio, which is about 77 just within USTRANSCOM, and then expanding it out to the Joint Distribution Deployment Enterprise, that's over 125 different systems. Each of those systems has their own database and their own volumes of data. So we're approaching petabytes worth of information that's under overall USTRANSCOM purview, or how do we move DoD logistics. So that's a lot of volume of data, that's a lot of processing that needs to be done. That type of volume is something that we would consider as a big data approach. Next question, please. What is the difference between big data and the enterprise data environment, and how do the two fit together? So the enterprise data environment is what we're actually setting out to do as part of our prototype. That's the actual technical solution on how we're going to solve the big data problem for the command. So if you think about it, that's what the contract's in place for. That's the technology that we're trying to deploy right now into the cloud environment. The big data piece is actually what is going to populate that environment. So all those C2 systems, all the databases, any other external data sources we want to incorporate into our environment, that's what's going to populate the enterprise data environment. And that's how the relationship fits together. Next slide, please. Okay, question 3. One major challenge to USTRANSCOM is the lack of consistency in the data structure format across the different programs. How will the Big Data Initiative help us address this challenge? So a combination. So there's also an Enterprise Data Management Office that is also stood up within the Transcom J6 Data Directorate or Division. That office is actually charged with a set of how to produce the governance, and with folks help with other directorates across the command, came up with a data strategy, part with joint JDPAC partners and J6. We've drafted a data strategy that's actually out in TMT right now for coordination across the directorates and senior leadership to take a chop, and that's the data strategy we're approaching for the command. That data strategy is focusing on the idea that, hey, we need to look at the data sources and align them more to be the single sources of truth, and then enforce some standards across the data that we utilize across the JDDE, within the command, and across the JDDE. And then, of course, our role as a JDDC, or General Medusa's role as a JDDC, is hopefully going to be one of those positions where we'll help reach that kind of standard across the DoD and across the logistics community within the DoD. Next slide, please. Question 4. I heard that big data team is getting ready to start working on a proof of principle. Can you talk a little bit about the POP, its objectives, and how it ties into the overall big data initiative? So the proof of principle contract actually just kicked off on the 25th of May. We're excited about that. Last week was actually the first week. The folks were actually here on the ground, starting the initial reach out to other directorates, data system owners, trying to find POCs within the command that they would be working with to get after the proof of principle. The proof of principle is designed to stand up the enterprise data environment, the technical solution to house all that data. It's also designed to answer several vignettes. Those vignettes were developed within the command, cross-directorate and cross-component. The 4 vignettes tie into air refueling, cargo movement, shipping capacity, and patient movement. So 2 of those vignettes are going to be answered within the baseline contract, which is the first 120 day, because this contract the baseline portion of the proof of principles scheduled for 120 days. So by the end of the 120-day initiative, not only are we going to have a deployed enterprise data environment, we will also have a machine learning AI solution to 2 of those vignettes, which are air refueling and cargo movement. Next slide, please. During the last talk, you mentioned that the data lake and advanced algorithms will enable us to develop machine learning, artificial intelligence capabilities. What is the timeline for us to develop these capabilities? So the initial capabilities will be deployed within the command at the end of a 120-day proof of principle. The intent for the big data contract and the prototype was to show that to the command that we can do the machine learning AI capabilities fast, more rapidly than previous contracts. That way allowing us to deliver capabilities to the functionals and the user community in 2 to 3 months agile process, rather than having, with other typical contracts where you come in and a year later you have a product that, your capabilities, your desires may change over the course of the year. So the desire is that we deliver you small iterations every 3 months on whatever the use case or whatever the machine learning AI prototype may be. So hopefully that answers that. Next slide, I think, open up to questions. Sir?
Real easy, what's a data lake?
So the data lake is, it's a technical concept. It's a giant, it's a large data repository that has no necessarily rules or structure to the data. So if you look at a database, it's a very highly structured type of data. And similarly, if you're trying to say, hey, I want to see a database, I want to see Microsoft Word documents, PDF files, videos, XML, whatever the format is, a repository that can hold all those different data elements would be construed as a data lake. So it's a repository that does not necessarily have to have a structure or rhyme or reason to it. It just can hold volumes of data independent of what the structure may be.
Are any of your data sets that y'all use open to industry for giving better insight to extrapolate points of interest?
Okay, one more time.
Say there are any of the data sets available for industry to use that
So are you asking if we will publish our data sets to the rest of the industry?
yes, in some form or accessible within this environment for folks who are already working with DoD?
Sure, sure. So I'll caveat it this way. So right now, the enterprise data environment, we're looking actually more of incorporating industry data sets into that environment. So based on some of the problems that the command is generating. So we'll look at the use cases that we've come up with. So the 4 use cases we've developed thus far. Based on each use cases, there are certain data that would be required to answer that use case. If the data is found within the USTRANSCOM systems, those are the first data elements that will be incorporated into the environment. However, if in the course of working the machine learning AI solutions to answering those vignettes, we identify that there's a need for additional data elements to be brought in, and those data elements reside outside of USTRANSCOM, whether with certain commercial partners or other commercial entities, then it's up to us to broker that deal and broker that data and transfer that in. So that's going to be kind of the mechanism of approaching that. I think later on you can potentially see, as we improve our data governance and data standards and try to make sure that show that as a stepping stone for the DoD to be adopting similar standards across the DoD. Those standards could be easily published to the rest of the commercial partners that we partner with to say, hey, data, if we want to do weight categories, we want weight to be always given to us in pounds or short tons or whatever that is. But having that, establishing that standard first, adopting that standard internally, publishing it to the rest of the DoD to kind of flight follow, and then expanding that out to other folks to either adopt or flight follow with us. Any other questions? Yep.
Two-part question. First, how is this new enterprise data environment going to be accessible to everyone within Transcom to access the data?
Mm-hmm.
And two, how are we going to ensure that we're not duplicating data that we're already going to be storing in the new collaboration platform that's being developed?
Okay, good question. So the enterprise data environment has its own security capabilities built into it, and it ties into our Transcom Active Directory. So folks that already have access to our Transcom domain will also have access to those data. Now, it also will be dependent on your function within Transcom. So if, for instance, if you're just doing cargo movement but are not part of the Surgeon General group, you probably will never see patient movement data unless you have, a need to know. So that level of access and that level of control would be still governed by those data owners. But at the same time, we want to make sure that that data accessibility and data analytics that are allowed, that we will open up to everybody within the command to utilize. So not only that, part of our contract is to also provide some training to the functional users within the command of actually using some of the pre-existing small algorithms and capabilities that are inherent within the data environment. So we want to make sure that that training is available to everybody in the command. And I'm sorry, your second question was, I think, duplication of data. Is that correct? Yeah. As data is being ingested, one of the solutions that one of the folks that we partnered with is a company called StreamSets. As data is actually ingested into our enterprise data environment, they have a capability known as data drift. That data drift can identify similar data elements that are either existing already within the environment or coming from multiple different sources. So now they can identify, hey, this is a duplication of data. We may want to now kind of take a look at that data and realize, hey, do we want to eliminate that data set or bring it in as an additional kind of like, this is interesting to see that two different systems reporting on similar data, and then kind of figure out which one would be as our sole source of truth for that type of data element or data set.
And I think also the collaboration platform, the collaboration tool is more of a central repository of things, action items that have been taken based on their relationship with data, right? So, for example, if I ask you to go the legislative office to go find out, hey, didn't we answer a congressional from Congressman X back then? That's where the collaboration tool is, where all that information is stored, not necessarily data storage.
Yeah.
Paul,
Hey, Lou.
it's correct to say that it's an evolutionary process. So it works, J6 works with stuff on credentialing, which is one aspect of sorting ties, and how we get stuff to industry and share it to other people who have access to it. You already described the big data effort and the data lakes, and eventually you're going to get into quality of data by looking at confidence models, et cetera, so you have a measure of, when you look at the data, whether it's a 90% good info or it's a 20% crappy piece of info, right?
Correct. So we're actually looking at that right now as well. So with our vignettes right now, we're looking at those certain data elements that we're trying to bring in to solve those problems. We're actually looking and evaluating those systems and the data that they have, and then trying to figure out, okay, is that the system that actually had that source of data, the origination of that data, or did that receive data from outside elements? So as we flight follow the path of the data further and further to the right or to the left, depending on how you look at it, we're trying to get to those the origins of the data, and then bringing those the original data elements in, rather than just having the second and third order effects of the data. But you're correct. Yep.
Thanks.
Sir.
Kind of follow to that. Many times we hear about a system of record.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think, this is not a system. This is where data, like the data lake will hold all this data.
Correct.
Will we get away from the term system of record? Because sometimes you go to this system, you get one answer for that question. Go to another system, you get a different one. But if all the data is here,
Correct.
would that be kind of the system of record?
So I don't want to apply the terms systems of records because there's some acquisition terminology and everything that applies to a nomenclature of system of record. However, what I want to say is that you're correct. If we can take a look, if we look at connecting the data sources together and bringing those data elements into one location, then as we explore that data and mine that data, we're actually getting into data, trying to reduce that, trying to improve that data quality element that you're relating to. So if one system's reporting one set of information, another system's reporting another one, this is where that location is to highlight those two differences and then try to resolve those data quality issues for the command. That way, as a user, you will identify it or the system automatically identifies that for you. We have a data quality office within the J6 that actually specifically looks at resolving those data quality issues. So as machines and the technologies doing that automatically for us, we should be able to resolve more and more of those data quality issues for our users. That way the end result is you see a better data element when you do a query. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Kelly Mueller-McNulty, and I'm here to talk to you about TMS and answer some questions. So if we could just move on to the first question. Okay, so first question. Someone attended the TMS demo in November, and they were really excited, which is good, to learn about the proof of concept. And what has the TMS team been working on since then? Well, over the last 6 months, I can tell you the team's been very busy. We brought on an integrator, Team Telesto, and we did that through the OTA process, which is known as Other Transactional Authority, which allowed us to go relatively fast in acquisition terms. We brought them on and onboarded them in March, and then we immediately went to work on implementing our first prototype, which means we're going to move out from CONUS into the Paycom AOR. We're going to take about 24 months to do this, and then we're going to evaluate whether or not we continue on with the TMS. So we're going to do that in 4 phases using the sustainment line of business, and I've got a trifold here that really lays that out, what that means, and they're on the back table out there if you care to grab one on the way out. After that, the team got together. We had a JOIPT, which is a joint overarching IPT, and we brought in folks from all around the enterprise. Team Telesto told them about the TMS, what it means, how we're going to do this. We introduced our IPTs to them and explained them the blueprinting that would be happening. We brought the folks back in to do blueprinting in May, and then we're going to get into global blueprinting in July. So that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months, and we're getting ready to bring the folks in and really get into the processes within the TMS, look at the workflows in July, and what that means from a business process perspective, what we're going to need to change as an enterprise in order to accommodate the TMS. So next question. How will TMS integrate with or replace supplier warehouse and management systems? A TMS is not going to replace the supplier WMS, but what they do is they work together, TMSs and WMSs. They work together to enhance supply chain activities. So what we'll be doing in Release 1.1 is we'll be working through the order ingestion process, what that means for ordering systems to come in through the TMS, how the TMS ingests that, and then translates that through the TMS data integration layer. So as we do that, we're seeing more opportunities to integrate with DLA, and we're working through that with them through bi-weekly IPTs, where we're looking at possible integrating modules, applications, and SAP, because we're both using SAP as our software solution. So we believe there are going to be lots of opportunities to integrate with them as we move forward, and we will continue in these IPTs working through that and just making those discoveries. Okay, question 3. How are you engaging with the components, COCOM services, other OSD stakeholders to get their feedback and buy-in for this initiative? We really started this back in spring, summer last year when General Millard went out and he visited with OSD and DLA, and we talked about this TMS, bringing it in. At that point in time, we started talking with OSD about their TFA initiative, how these two initiatives might work together to complement one another. We talked to DLA, talked about their warehouse management system. We've also engaged them in the JOIPT, like I just mentioned, and through these blueprinting activities, we're bringing in folks from all over, OSD, joint staff, DLA, industry. So we're going to work to do that. We're going to continue with that, and also Colonel Fogarty and the PAO has really helped us through our strategic engagements. They've been developing newsletters to send out. summarizing the JOIPT results, and then also explaining what we need for the continuing blueprinting. So we'll continue in those efforts as we move forward. Question 4. Okay, how will TMS be integrated with the cloud, big data, and DP3 efforts? So I'm not quite sure about the DP3. I think Ralph talked about that a little bit. The big data in the cloud, I do know that we will be residing, the TMS will reside in the Amazon cloud inside a virtual private cloud, a VPC, and that will be behind the TRANSCOM wall, right, where we will be able to enjoy the, like Wes mentioned earlier, the security controls that come along with that, so that's a good thing. And for the big data, we'll start out really providing data into the big data where they can use it to enhance analytics, the intelligence capabilities, right? And eventually, as we work with them, we'll determine that feed that should actually be just one feed inside where we can just consume that from the TMS. So I think that's what we're trying to get to with big data eventually. Okay, question 5. How can I learn more? Now, Wes mentioned earlier the WW2 site, TRANSCOM site. We're out there too. We're right underneath the Sprint to the Cloud link. If you'll go out to that, there is a lot of good information out there. We have POCs, and we have frequently asked questions just like these today, many, many more. We also have a communications tab that has all the minutes, the products, the summaries from the JOIPT, from our DLA meetings, if you want to look back at what happened in those. It's a lot of information. We also have a Learning Center tab out there that we'll be populating with training products as we develop them. And it's organized very nicely. PA helped us with that to get that set up. So I think if you go out there and take a look at that, you'll learn quite a bit about TMS and our trifolds. So pick one up on the way out. And plus our folks. We've got our POCs out there. We're here to answer any questions that you guys have and to help you learn more about TMS. So I think now it's time for questions. Anybody? Yes, sir?
So I think as TMS is looking to potentially replace some of the business processes that are within the command, where in your prototype initiative are you guys looking at evaluating, or how much of the business process portfolio are you guys looking at evaluating and optimizing it under TMS versus leaving that alone within those other systems?
Well, we'll actually start doing that in the blueprinting in July. When we bring folks in, we're going to be really, with the functionals and the architects, we're going to be looking at the workflows inside of a TMS, and we're going to be architecting our current processes. That's why it's so important that we get the right people in these blueprinting sessions and then the subsequent IPTs, because those people are going to come in and help us understand the special requirements that we need inside of the TMS. They're going to help us build it, and then they're going to help us determine what needs to change inside of those processes. So we're going to start looking at that right away in July with the next release in 1.1 we go, or 1.2 when we go into Hawaii. Anybody else? So thank you, sir. All right. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Okay. Hopefully this was beneficial for you. I want to give you an opportunity to ask any additional questions that you have, but I also want to explain to you, you're probably thinking, who's fusing all this together? Who is ensuring that the leadership is getting the information? So what we do is we have the Commander's Executive Board, and that exists. We meet every Tuesday afternoon as regularly as we can, but we really make a hard effort to do that. And that's where we ask that the team leads come in and continuously update on us on all those issues, from resourcing to where they are on their particular POAMs to get to success. And so where are their hurdles, those types of things, and bring those to us. They also regularly update General McDew on a regular basis individually, and then myself and the TCDC and the directors are oftentimes in there, so that we're ensuring that we're all on the same page. And I can guarantee you these teams have done an outstanding job of educating the third deck on what's going on, what should be going on. We're also using that board to bring in outside industry experts to come take a look at what each of the teams are doing to see if we're on track, just based on their experience in industry on how we're moving forward and where potential hurdles might be as well to educate us. So lots of great work. I want to thank each of the teams for coming out and doing this. If you can think of if you think of other questions that you might have had after you leave here, use Ask Us Anything. Email me directly. Nobody uses my email but me. I'm the only one that reads it. So I will answer your email and get you the right, put you in the right direction. I may have an answer that you don't want to hear, but I owe you an answer. We all owe you an answer as we move forward. These are very, very busy projects, and we didn't give you a whole lot of resources to get after them. But people are doing a fantastic job. But if you're sitting out there wondering and something's bothering you about, hey, I don't think that's going to work based on my experience, bring it up, right? Let these folks know. If you've got a question, bring it up, and we'll be happy to get you an answer and get after it, because we want this done right the first time. Now, the boss has said over, since I've been here a little over a year, that, hey, he's got the gas pedal down and he wants to fail fast if we're going to fail, right? So, and I think that you will find that in each of these teams, they've come up with a problem set that they didn't think they were going to have. It's that gotcha moment, that aha moment, and then, but they figured out how to get around it. They figured out how to get over that hurdle. And so that's because we're talking to each other. So please continue to do that and let me know what you have for us. Any more questions for the team down front? No more questions? If you've got a good idea for either tech talks that you want more information on, whether it's a collaboration tool or other things, or something that we can do in a Transcom show to educate the workforce, bring it up. It can be about any subject except for Cubs baseball. But other than that, it can be about anything. Happy to answer those questions and get you the information that you need so that you can get your job done. Okay? Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. Please take the time to fill out the bottom half of that survey so that we can kind of understand how we're doing educating the workforce. Mike, did you have a question? Okay, great. On the survey? Okay. Please complete that survey. Thanks again. Once again, thanks for your time. Enjoy your afternoon. Carry on.